10. So although the demonstration fly-through is at 500 feet, air-to-air refuelling behind a C-130 would actually take place significantly higher to reduce the amount of turbulence on those baskets. You can see them moving quite considerably. But it may not necessarily be during daytime. The baskets themselves have got day-glow and field lights that glow in the dark, so it aids the receiver plugging in the hours of darkness, because obviously the tanker may sometimes not be lit, and that can be conducted on night vision goggles. Yes, this is especially the case with the aircraft of US Air Force Special Operations Command, of course. The MC-130J is able to refuel its receivers at speeds about 15 knots higher than the previous HC and MC-130 tankers. And also interesting in the context of refueling is that in austere environments out in the battlefield, an MC-130J is able to set up a forward area refueling point, or a FARP, whereby the Hercules lands and runs its refueling hoses out, and they can be used by helicopters or Ospreys, fighters or other types of aircraft to refuel on the ground. It's useful for sorties, for example, to high-value targets, medical evacuation missions, hostage rescue efforts and so forth. And in the context of the 352nd Special Operations Wing at Mildenhall, it works in collaboration when setting up a FARP with the Mildenhall-based 100th Logistics Readiness Squadron, which is part of the 100th Air Refueling Wing, whose KC-135 you can see static parts, both to practice for and to provide this capability. So the C-130 now cleared across to Bryce Radar en route back home to Mildenhall as the CV-22 starts its display from the right-hand side. Absolutely fascinating aeroplane, this. A tilt rotor, and we'll see that demonstrated during this display. The idea here being to combine something of the speed attributes of a fixed-wing aircraft with the versatility of the helicopter. And that high-speed attribute highly visible there, 100 feet and 240 knots as it conducts its high-speed pass. Out of interest, most helicopters will cruise around 150 knots, so that's somewhere in the order of 100 knots faster, while still having the ability to land vertically. The Osprey is able to transport 24 combat troops, and it can take 20,000 pounds of internal cargo, or up to 15,000 pounds externally underslung, and as we've seen, it's air-to-air refueling capable. A collaborative effort between Bell and Boeing. Boeing builds the fuselage and all the subsystems, provides the digital avionics and the fly-by-wire control system, while Bell supplies the wing, the transmissions, the empennage, the rotor systems, and the engine installation. Very much combat proven now. The Osprey started out in terms of its frontline use with the US Marine Corps, with its first deployments in 2007, but this is the US Air Force's CV-22B version, which again infiltrates, resupplies and exfiltrates US Special Operations Command forces, making use of a combat radius of some 500 nautical miles with one external fuel tank. But air-to-air refueling, like we saw from the Hercules, can give a range of more than 2,000 nautical miles and increase its endurance to somewhere in the region of 5 hours. Well, we've seen it in what we might loosely call aircraft mode. Here it is, transitioning to helicopter mode. Deceleration and then later an acceleration demonstration there. Aircraft reducing speed from 250 down to about 80 knots with those engine nacelles right now in the vertical position, slowing the aircraft right down as it repositions for another slow flight through. And one of the interesting things about the tilt rotor capability is how pilots flying special operations sorties with the Osprey can use it to their advantage, because when the terrain gets more restrictive, The rotors can be tilted upwards to slow the Osprey down so they can make tighter turns and remain at lower level over the terrain. Yet, its performance in the, what we might call aircraft mode, also enables it to fly higher than a helicopter out of range of ground-based threats. The engine pod's now being transitioned from the vertical to the horizontal position. You can see the aircraft accelerating now through 100 knots as it starts now to go into pure wing-borne flight. Proved a very versatile platform, the Osprey. Has one export customer so far, the Japan